Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished professional from Toulouse, France, Angela Philp. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It's great to meet you.
Thank you. Angela is a women's executive leadership and resilience coach. Angela, we'll speak about resilience coaching first, but before we talk about resilience, tell me about your own journey in brief and how did that lead up to coaching high achieving women?
It's a brilliant story. I think if I wanted to take it back to the very, very beginning, it would have been learning from a very young age from my parents that to follow my dream, no matter how hard it seems, and to be clear on my values and be clear on my vision and my dream and not let it go and be a little lenient's not the word. Be creative about the ways to get there. Don't be fixed on the way there. Be creative about the ways there, but be clear on where you want to go and what your values are. And it all started because I had wanted to work for UNESCO in France. And of course, living in New Zealand at the time, I would send my CVs and be told, no, young lady, you don't have enough experience. And I thought, okay, I have to find a way of getting to France. So that is what I did. I found a way of getting to France with another job. And again, I think it's seizing opportunities is the point here as well. It's like I knew I wanted this. If it wasn't going to happen the conventional way, it was going to have to happen an unconventional way. And I happened to be invited to a party my first week in France. And I was talking to somebody and she said, why are you here? And I went, oh, I want to work for UNESCO. And she went, I work for UNESCO. Would you like to meet my boss? So being open to these synchronicities, I think, is important. And if we fast forward years later, after I was married and had children, I felt that there were more things to be doing in working with women. And at that stage, I wasn't working with women in leadership. I was working with education programs for the Global South. And I felt that there wasn't a lot of work being done on the soft skills, on confidence and mindset. And that's something I've grown up with. And so I wrote a program and I had intended to put it into place outside of France. And for various reasons, I couldn't. And someone said, well, why don't you do that with us? And so I launched a program. And in that program was a woman who was passing an assessment center to raise, to jump a couple of levels in her job for her career progression. And she said, could you coach me? And I went, goodness me, no, I'm not a coach. And we talked. And in the end, I said, again, it's seizing the opportunity. So she said, basically, if I won't call you a coach if you'll coach me. And I said, well, I'll accompany you. And she passed her assessment center. And I thought, I think I should get some coaching training because I loved it. And so I think the next step, the thing that was really important was not just seizing opportunities, but investing in myself. And so a couple of years later, I thought I took a real leap of faith and I thought I'm going to invest in the best leadership and coaching training I can find. And that led me to a course that happened that was taking place in Mexico, in Cancun. And through that investment, I met some amazing women and men who were in leadership positions, and from there began coaching relationships.
Amazing.
And it's continued since then.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your journey. So, Angela, let's talk about resilience and resilience coaching. And logically, my first question is, how do you define resilience and what does it mean for women leaders?
It's a wonderful question. And I'd love to start I think that we have an outdated definition of resilience as the way the world currently sees it. And the way we've defined resilience has really been linked to, bouncing back from adversity, bouncing back like, as we would say, a rubber band. And it's a very individual a very challenge or adversity linked definition. It's always related to the next obstacle. And what concerned me about the definition was that it was about taking shape, like retaking the same shape. And I think that was very much linked to the way polymers, resilience was a word that they used with polymers, and that when they were subjected to heat, that they would, after that heat, that they would then take the same shape. Right. And I thought, we can't compare humans or anything living to this. And so my definition of resilience and a different metaphor, rather than having this metaphor of a rubber band and always bouncing back from adversity and being the strong one, which is how most of the women I work with define it, endurance. And I also have been an endurance adventure racer. Quite a story to tell about resilience. I feel that the true resilience that we can have, is, I guess it would be beyond resilience.
Right.
Is about creating forward, the capacity to create forward and see new possibility, no matter what the circumstances, and to build energy and momentum as we move forward. So some people have said that bouncing forward, I'd say it's creating forward, and being able to build energy and momentum as we go. And the metaphor I would use for that is the river. And an essential part of that river, as well as the laminar flow, which is this the part of the river that is intentionally moving forward and unaffected by surface tension or turbulence.
Right. Fascinating. What a great definition. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners will replay that definition of resilience to understand it much, much better. My next question, Angela, is, can you talk a little bit about the body-mind connection and how it plays into building resilience?
I think it's essential, the body-mind connection. And so when I did my last adventure race, which was, are you familiar with adventure racing? Yeah, right.
A little bit, not too much.
Okay. Well, for your listeners who aren't, it's they're long distance races through nature's terrain, so anything up from 90 to 600 kilometers.
Wow.
Sometimes even more, with no motorized help. So it's all physical: running, mountain biking, horse riding, kayaking. And the very last race I did, I crossed the finish line with a dislocated shoulder, and I thought, why am I doing this? Why do I need to keep proving to myself when this had been joyful? Why, what am I not noticing inside me? What is driving me to do these things? And so if I just bring it back to the course that I do on resilience, I believe that there are 3 mindset shifts that we need to have to be more resilient, and the body-mind connection is very much linked to them. So the first is that if we are believing that we have to only endure, when business environments, the whole world is more complex, we're really recognizing systems that we're a part of. If endurance is our only muscle, our only speed, and that endurance is about struggle, so I'm already starting to use my body now. I notice a lot of women, if they do if they start to relate to what the word struggle means inside their body, we'll start to see you gritting your teeth, clenching fists, punching shoulders. And from a place of struggle, we're not strong, really. And it's hard to create new ways forward. So being able to recognize, in fact, the somatic impact of how you're holding resilience in your body is very important. A mindset shift to have, the first one is from struggle to effort. And you could even do this, Ashutosh. You can see, what does effort feel like in your body? Well, it generally feels more expansive. It's still a stretch. It's not hanging out. It's still a stretch. It still requires you to put in some energy. You're not just being balloted around, but being able to really see the difference in your own body is a way that you can shift into a more generative form of resilience. And that comes from that body-mind connection.
Very interesting. Great response. So, Angela, my next question is, what role does self-awareness play in developing resilience, and how do you cultivate it with your coaches?
So self-awareness is probably the most important role, in fact. Without self-awareness, there's not a lot we can change.
Right.
We can't be more resilient, but also we can't improve our leadership either. Because it starts self-awareness. Who am I being? What am I feeling? How am I showing up? What are the impacts? Like, what can I notice in myself in the impact of the words? And then from there, it's like, okay, what's outside with respect to that? So without true self-awareness, we're not going to go very far. And I think coaching is all about self-awareness. It starts there. It's very much about, what are your beliefs? Who are you being? We coach the whole person. What's the impact of this situation on you? And what would you like to do about that? So it's an interesting question, because what I noticed is that it seems so obvious to me, and yet I realize it's not obvious to most people. We're very much an outside in. What can I change everything out there? Absolutely. And then I'll be okay. And in fact, it's an inside out shift we need to make.
Well said. And how do you work with clients to redefine resilience in a system that can often feel extractive and unsustainable?
Oh, that is a great question, and I feel like it's the question of my life, Ashutosh.
Okay.
My life mission. So it is an extractive, primarily extractive system we're in. I mean, the whole industrial system and post-industrial systems have been about extracting everything we can from people. And so the first way I work with people in those systems is to notice the effect of them. And I think, we could draw the broad lines of the effects. We're seeing so much more burnout, dissociation, people working in silos and feeling disconnected. But again, the way I work first is like by looking at, first of all, what are the mindsets that we have? Who do we think we should be? Where are we trying to do things all by ourselves? And I say this particularly for women who don't like to ask for help. So looking at, again, it's a whole person approach. I really start with the beliefs. Notice where they're struggling. So where are you struggling? What would effort look like? Again, if we're looking at also, I really work a lot with judgments. I think self-judgment first, and then outside are inherently damaging to all of us. And so, in fact, it's almost our own extractive system, unrealistic expectations of ourselves, high self-judgment, perfectionism. So I really look at, I nearly said attacking. I really look at working with these particular issues first, and then bringing compassion. I think compassion, empathy, compassion and empathy, we have a tendency, I've noticed, to think are qualities that we call soft. And there is an idea that if we are empathic and bring compassion, that we'll not have the strength or the the backbone to move forward. And I believe it's completely the opposite. When we bring compassion, there's room for action, because too much judgment and we end up paralyzed.
Amazing. Thank you. My next question for you is, how do you teach women to maintain resilience during periods of great uncertainty or crisis? Most of us, this question is not just for women. I mean, most of us tend to panic when there's uncertainty or crisis, and we need to be resilient.
Yes. It's a great question. And there are more and more crises as well, and there's more and more complexity. Correct. So it's not likely to come from the outside. And I really reflected on this question. And I reflect on it for myself as well daily. And I think that there are a few things. The first thing is to make sure that you have practices that keep you strong. So when I say strong, I mean internally aligned. For me, that's strength. And so I will go back to basics in terms of resilience. So on a personal level, getting enough sleep. That's So how do I get enough sleep when I'm worried? How do I get enough sleep when I don't know what's going to happen next? Um, so there's, of course, the physical practices of getting to bed earlier. I mean, I'm going to talk about just these ones first. They're basic. You'll read them on LinkedIn. You'll read them on Facebook. You'll read them on Instagram. You'll read them on Google, everywhere. Like, what can I do? We'll put practices in place. So your meditation practices, getting to bed earlier, requiring yourself, being the leader, which does mean putting your phone down, overcoming the urge. And for example, my meditation practice is sacred. My sport is sacred. It's something for me that is important. And these keep me strong when everything is falling around me. Building units, and I mean networks. So I think communities is now a better word than networks. Recognizing that you don't have to do it all on your own, and learning to lean on each other, requiring. I know a lot of people say, I can't ask for help. Because I'm going to be a burden and everybody else is already burdened, but strangely collectively coming together and recognizing you're not in it alone, just saying, hey, can you hear me out? So building community, asking for help, they're the basics as well. And also, I think for myself is rigorously recognizing, what am I thinking right now? So giving myself some perspective, and I work on that with my clients as well, like just training and taking moments during the day of like thought hygiene. What am I thinking? And specifically if you're in thought spirals of it's always going to be like this, it's never going to change. Those sorts of black and white absolutes are what panic as well. So training to get some perspective, I think, is really important. And having sounding boards. So either your own coach or just a trusted group of individuals. And I know I keep building with that myself. So I just recommend everybody to keep going out and connecting as well. So connect internally first and then connect externally.
Correct. Well said. I have time for two more questions. What is your view on the relationship between emotional intelligence and resilience?
It's a very strong relationship to build. If we're looking at emotional intelligence, particularly through the lens of empathy, but just also recognizing your own emotions. If you are taken out by your own emotions over and over and over again, you're going to lower your resilience. You're going to lower the feeling of strength and momentum that you have. So being aware of your own emotions and others is important. And then again, it's coming back to before, the compassion and the empathy, like recognizing that we're human. And giving some grace to the fact that we're human, and instead of trying to get it all right, allows the possibility to see what else, what new ways forward can I create. It leaves a space for curiosity when we can lean into some emotional intelligence. Whereas if we're disconnected from that, then we're only in high expectations, unreasonable expectations of ourselves and others, and we're in unreasonable judgments of ourselves and others, and we cannot be at our best or create the solutions needed to resolve the challenges or hold the paradoxes that we're in. And our resilience takes not very nice, takes a beating. But to generate that resilience, the empathy is really the way there. Self-acceptance and acceptance of others and empathy.
Correct. Well said. Empathy, emotional intelligence, and resilience clearly have a very, very strong bond with each other. And my last question for you, Angela, what advice would you give to women leaders who feel overwhelmed by pressures of leadership, especially in high-stake roles?
Again, I'm just noticing myself. I've got a few pieces of advice. I think on a personal level, develop your practices that keep you centered. We're easily not off-center if we don't have practices that we can practice and practice. If we talk about martial arts, before you're out on the street fighting, we practice in the dojo. So we practice these practices when everything's going well first. The other advice that I would give again is nourish your community, nourish your network. And that means allowing yourself to be held by them. So like always have on call or always have in your mind, who can I call? And I know that that's the thing that stabilizes. Often we feel very much alone, recognizing that you're not alone. So being part of, for example, I'm in Europe. I'm part of European Women on Boards. I know that I can go there for great holding and advice. I have my own communities that I have as well, that are other that I have started, that are places where people can come to for support, and just realize it. And I think the other thing always is keep investing in yourself. Keep investing in yourself. Keep, make it strategic, but keep broadening, in fact, your skill set as well, so that you can lean on those practices and what and I can't help but say it. Find a coach. There's so many times that we think we have to do things by ourselves. So the advice of a group of peers is really important, but also a coach or a mentor or both are fantastic for just helping tweak the belief back.
Absolutely. And on that note, and your amazing pieces of advice, develop practices that keep you centered. Nourish your network. I love the term nourish your network. It's fantastic. Third, you said was invest in yourself. And the fourth one you said was find a coach. Thank you, Angela, for speaking to me about your own journey. The message that came through so powerfully right in the beginning was how important it is for each one of us to seize the opportunity as and when it comes. Thank you for speaking to me about resilience at such length. We didn't have the time to speak about any other topics about leadership, but we may schedule another conversation some other time to talk about that. Clearly, you live the life of resilience yourself, because you've told me about how you have developed this amazing hobby or strategy to be able to run and perform in very high performance sports. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website, www.tbcy.in, to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.